The isthmus is a critical piece of infrastructure, as you mentioned, not only for Nova Scotia, but for Canada as a whole. We think about the trade. It is the trade corridor to Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland, and without protecting the isthmus, we could leave ourselves very vulnerable for the future. So that's why our government is taking a Canada First approach, and we want to get started on this project because, as you know, it's about a 10-year project to complete the protection, and we don't want to lose a moment of activity that we can start there. So that's why we've accepted the current deal from the feds. We still believe that, because it's a national trade corridor, that the federal government has full responsibility for this. So we've accepted the 50% deal on a without prejudice basis, and we'll wait for the decision to determine what happens at that point, but we need to get started on this project.
That structured deal was offered a couple of years back, and we've been kind of dilly-dallying around for the last long while on that question of whether the feds should pay the whole thing. And now we've signed the deal, but as you pointed out, it's still before the courts, and we'll wait with our fingers crossed that they too see the wisdom of the federal government paying the whole thing. But the reason I wanted to talk to you most importantly is because we in Cumberland North live with an independent member of the legislature. And sadly, she's forever telling stories that aren't true, and she's been taking credit for getting you finally to do something. And the fact of the matter is, you pointed out, it's a 10-year deal, but it didn't start with the recent signing. It started a few years ago, and work has long been underway. Am I correct?
That's absolutely true. And with a project like this, there's so much preliminary work. So we've been working with the province of New Brunswick. A project manager was hired. The engineering folks are busy. We've got a team here in Nova Scotia that's been working on this, as does New Brunswick. And you can just imagine the amount of permitting that would have to take place for a project like this before actual shovels are in the ground. So, we have to look at habitats of animals, birds, fish. We have to ensure that we're protecting the agricultural land. We have to make sure that everything is in place before shovels are in the ground on the isthmus. And in the meantime, a berm has been started near the town, the La Planche River, to do some protection over there. Lots of pre-planning work has been completed and continues to be completed between the two provinces. So this has been an ongoing file for the minister previous to me. Minister Masland started this work, and I'm picking up where she left off. And, at the end of the day, our goal is to get this project completed with our partners and ensure that trade route is protected.
Now, I mentioned at the start here our thought for today, it's never too late to begin again. And I'm reminded that what we're talking about are a series of dikes and abattoirs that protect the isthmus. These were originally installed, and I might add, by hand in the very late 1600s by the Acadians. Are we simply duplicating their work?
Well, you think about that, and the engineering marvel that took place in the 1600s has protected the isthmus for over 400 years. So certainly we will be doing very similar work. Obviously, it will be very much mechanized work and quicker work. But essentially, that's what we're doing, is building a system to protect, the critical infrastructure. You think about the Trans-Canada Highway, you think about CN Rail, you think about the transmission lines, potential pipelines that come through there. there's a lot of infrastructure that needs to be protected so that we can ensure that Nova Scotia continues to prosper and we can unlock our potential here.
Some people have just looked at the fact that the Trans-Canada Highway runs across there, and it's on a rather low point of land. The isthmus is very close to sea level, and that's the whole issue here. And they think, well, so a few trucks can't get through. What's the big deal? And I mentioned already $100 million each day back and forth. It's not just the trucks on the Trans-Canada, but the CN rail lines and so on. And as you pointed out, what we don't see across that isthmus, we do see a few windmills are already out there, but the major power transmission lines for electricity coming and going across from between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, natural gas, that's flowing into Nova Scotia, and that's coming at us at a time when we treasure it rather greatly. And then, of course, telecommunications infrastructure. You take away our phones and our television sets, and we'll be angry at you,
Absolutely. And I know my own family would be very angry with me as well. But the other thing that's really important to think about, it's not only goods coming into Nova Scotia, it's all of our exports that we need to get to market across Canada and across the world. That isthmus is a very important structure for our seafood, our tires, all of our forestry, all of those products that are being exported out of Nova Scotia. We need to get them to market. And so protecting the isthmus is also very important for goods leaving Nova Scotia.
Now let's talk about the money. We understood right from the get-go the sharing of the cost was a fixed kind of standard over the years on infrastructure projects where the province would pay a quarter and the feds would pay some other. In this case, it's Nova Scotia and New Brunswick who are both paying from either side because both are dependent on this isthmus directly for protection from the actual flooding. We know, for instance, that a flood would impact a good bunch of Tantramar in New Brunswick, and there are parts of Amherst and parts leading to Amherst that would literally be underwater in such a crisis. So Nova Scotia and New Brunswick's going to pay $162.5 million. The feds will pay $325 million, and they're taking their funds from the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. So they have a fund set aside just for this. The financial argument that you and I both alluded to already is that Nova Scotia contends that the feds should be paying all of it because of what you just described. It's not just Nova Scotia being affected. It's not just New Brunswick being affected. It's Newfoundland being affected, cut off from their import, if you will, from the rest of Canada. And it's the rest of Canada being cut off from the things that go west. And there's already a precedent set in Quebec where the federal government paid for the rebuilding of a complete bridge. And that one wasn't $325 million, that was $1 billion. And they paid 100% of that, claiming it was the feds who claimed that is a national problem, a national concern. And yet the current Liberal government in Ottawa can't see that this too is a national concern. That's why we're holding our breath with the court. Is it true?
Absolutely, and again, we firmly believe that the isthmus is a federal responsibility. And if you think about the fact that it's 162 million. But it's $325 million from the federal government for which we had to apply to the DMAF program, and that means that we have to use the DMAF program for the isthmus, our whole allocation, as opposed to other projects.
We're already paying for disasters that we had through hurricanes in recent years. We're paying for that and wildfires and floods. I forgot. You're right. The feds are making us spend this money on those projects. So, you take the rub from Peter to pay Paul.
That's right. And the wharves that need repair from the damages. But at the end of the day, we know we need to protect that isthmus, so that's why we're taking the Canada First approach. We're protecting that trade corridor, but at the same time, we believe that the funding should come from the federal government, because every dollar that Nova Scotia spends to protect the isthmus is a dollar that we can't spend on healthcare. It's a dollar that we can't spend on education. So it snowballs down the line, but we realize the vast importance of protecting this. So we have to get started, and we will hope that the courts see the decision the same way that Nova Scotia sees it. As a matter of fact, the same way as New Brunswick sees it, and PEI. We've all been interveners in the process. So, we will wait. I think it's May. It's been delayed till May. So we'll wait to see what comes from that.
I wonder if it's delayed because of a federal election. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. You used some new jargon there, the Canada First approach. That's a term that really is born out of the current economic feud, the trade war with the United States, a war that the United States started and is now literally at war around the world, and how to deal with that situation. And Nova Scotia has been somewhat of a leader in trying to communicate to the rest of Canada that now's the time to drop all the barricades that we have on interprovincial trade, and the term Canada First that you used. This is very timely. Fix the isthmus as an example of how we really need to wipe out all the barricades, all the barriers to interprovincial trade. And here's a threat to interprovincial trade right here.
Absolutely, and I'm very proud of Premier Houston and the stance that he's taking, and he's really showing leadership across this country. He was the first province to talk about trade. We've got legislation right now before the legislature, the trade bill that would allow other provinces that want to do that with us to trade back and forth. He's written a letter to both leaders, Prime Minister Carney and Pierre Poilievre, outlining Nova Scotia's position. And the number one concern on that is the isthmus. And he's asking for their commitment to uphold the court decision when it comes down. If the courts see in favor of Nova Scotia, that we want them to uphold that. So the fact that we're taking a very proactive approach to protect Nova Scotia from the tariffs and protect Nova Scotia's economy. It's all about growth, and it's all about ensuring that there's good jobs for Nova Scotians, and that we're there to help Nova Scotians prosper.
Appreciate that, to be sure. While we have you, I understand that you might be taking a little walk through Cumberland South. Our local Cumberland South MLA and your cabinet colleague has a habit of bringing his colleagues into his riding and walking you through and looking and pointing firsthand at issues that have need. And when it comes to construction and public construction through your department, there's needs all over the place. So are you coming in to see with take tea with Tory Rushton anytime soon?
Oh, look, and Tory's been so kind to me since I joined the team, and I would certainly be there to as soon as Tory's ready, we'll get up there and we'll have a tour. And we plan on doing that this spring, touring the different areas of Nova Scotia to look at the infrastructure and identify projects. And I was very happy to deliver the $500 million project 5-year plan for highways. We continue to twin highways. We continue to do our repairs. There's a lot more work to be done. We've doubled the gravel program and doubled the rural program for road improvements. So we've really been investing in the infrastructure, and we're going to continue to do that all across the province.
Now, I understand there's a bit of an impediment for you to come to Cumberland North, but if you need a guide, I'm happy to fill that role for you. We'll take you in and make sure you get good coffee and a date square. How's that?
Oh, you know what? That's funny because date squares are my absolute favorite. My mom used to make a mean date square. No kidding.
I don't think there's 3 programs here go by where I don't mention date squares. They're a staple at Hope Center, that's for sure. Mr. Minister, Thank you for being here with us. It's a treat to chat with you for the first time. I have a funny feeling, and I hope I'm right, that we'll be talking to you again in the not too distant future.
Excellent. Thanks so much, and it's been a pleasure.